Okay, all right. Well, welcome everyone, and happy Valentine's Day. My name's Georgia Mason. I'm director of the Campbell Centre for the Study of Animal Welfare. And on this gorgeous wintry day, let's just take a moment to be grateful for the land we're on and to remember that all of Canada lies on the traditional ceded or what's the word? Treaty lands of Indigenous people, First Nations, Inuit and Métis. And of course, here in Guelph, we lie on the traditional lands of the Mississaugas of the Credit. It's my great pleasure today to introduce Professor George Stilwell, who's a veterinarian and associate professor at the University of Lisbon's veterinary school. He's interested in animal welfare, pain management, and agricultural economics with a particular specialization in ruminants. So he works on beef cattle, dairy cattle, and goats primarily. And his original plan, our original plan had been to have him here live in person to join in with the Saputo-funded dairy welfare rotation, which we had all of last week. But sadly, fate intervened. He was unable to come, but we're really grateful that he can join us today on Zoom. So he's going to talk about a topic that I'm a little bit nostalgic about, which is farm animal welfare assessment and certification in Europe. And he's going to tell us about its past, present, and future. If you're here partly in hope of getting CE credits, please get in touch with Laura Harper at the end and she can certify that you attended. And if you have questions for George along the way or at the end, please pop them into chat. If you're in the room, just come along and you can ask him direct up front. So we'll do a bit of swapsies at the end. Okay, George, over to you. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much, Georgia. And I'm really sorry for not being able to be there with you. It's much better to be together in person and also to visit Guelph again. I was there almost 10 years ago, and I also did a talk for the Campbell Centre for Study of Animal Welfare. So thank you very much, and I hope this will work. So, as Georgia said, I will be talking share a little bit of my experience with welfare assessments, mainly ruminant, and certification here in Portugal, in Europe, but mainly in Portugal. Just to get, if someone doesn't know where Portugal is, it's right on the other side of the Atlantic to where you are. It's a very small country compared with Canada and other countries. Even for Europe, it's a small country, but it has some nice features. One of them is we have 9 islands in the middle of the Atlantic called the Azores. A lot of people from the Azores went to Canada in the 20th century. And in these islands, we have a lot of dairy production. And in the continent, so Portuguese continent, we also have a lot of dairy production, but more intensive. In the Azores, it's 24 hours pasture. There's no roof. It's a very mild weather, very wet, but animals are all day, all year round outside. And in the south of Portugal, we have a lot of beef production, especially in very large areas with acorns, acorn production and cork production. Portugal is a small country, but I just like to show you it is an important country also because it's in the 15th and 16th century, and it was the land of the navigators, and they crossed all over the world, as you can see, including some visits to Canada in the 15th century. So it's a small country, but it has a very large history, or very important history. It is also very good for, if you want to come and visit us, very good, fantastic food and wine, and very nice sites. Now a little bit about me, just to show. I was a practitioner for almost 20 years, working mainly with ruminants, but all animals. And then I went into the university and I lecture farm animal clinics. I worked in 2018 and 2019 in Massey University in New Zealand, also doing clinical work. And I did my PhD in pain, like Georgia was saying just now, on pain assessment in ruminants. Okay, now to the main topic, welfare assessment and how it works, and to share a little bit of my experience. In Europe, the Treaty of Lisbon that was signed in the beginning of the 21st century, it was the first document that introduced a recognition of animals as sentient beings. And it's in one of its articles, it says that we have to pay full regard to the welfare requirements of animals. So from here onwards, legislation changed, and it's increased a lot on the welfare. I would like just to underline something that is in this document that is important, and we could discuss this later, but I'm not going into it now. That says that we have to look at the welfare of animals, but if it doesn't conflict with religious rights, cultural tradition, and regional heritage. And that brings us to some very strange situation in which we have to admit and accept some procedures and some ways of treating animals that are not really in the interests of the animals. But that's, like I said, that's another topic. So as you can see in this survey that's quite recent in 2023, 91% of the EU consumers demand, or they think that we should provide animals with the best conditions, best living condition. So welfare is really important for the European consumers, and of course that means that the legislation will go towards this kind of demand. This means that we're now working with the new European Commission, not new, it's been there for quite long, on this EU Green Deal. And the Green Deal brings up four pillars that are here. And in one of them, sustainable food production, animal welfare is, of course, included in this sustainable food production. The important thing about this Green Deal is what is now quite common, the term farm to fork. That means that if we're talking about animal welfare, we should also be talking about the farm to fork. We should also be assessing and certifying all the food chain from, in case of beef production, from the suckler herds to the slaughter. And this is something that's we'll talk a little bit later. One of my concerns is that sometimes certification is done in just some parts of this of the food chain, and we don't look at the others. For example, with suckler herds, we think because they're outside and because they have their natural living conditions, there's no one, but of course there is, and we have to deal with them. With the dairy production, one of my worries is the dairy calves, the male dairy calves that leave these dairy farms, and we should also be looking at the welfare of these animals. The dairy production, the dairy farms should be responsible not only for their own animals, but for the animals that they produce for outside. They should, or we should, start looking for the best conditions also for these animals that are fattened and slaughtered for beef. How is legislation produced in Europe? So the European Commission will because of public concern or whatever, they would issue a mandate to the European Food Safety Authority, EFSA, and EFSA will join experts from all over Europe and will come up and will publish a scientific opinion on the subject that the European Commission think is needed. For example, I worked in the working group for welfare of dairy cows and also for the welfare of calves. When we finished and we published the scientific opinion in end of the 2023, and this scientific opinion will provide the Commission with what science has proven, has demonstrated to be welfare concerns and welfare hazards, and eventually the solutions for it. The scientific opinion doesn't mean that it will become legislation, because then the Commission will discuss this with industry, with other organizations, and then they will come up with what they should or what they think is the needed changes for into legislation. For example, this is just a summary of our scientific opinion for dairy cows, in which we look at space, what is the minimum space for cows, and the bedding, the movement. It is one of the most important opinions in this scientific report that we did, is going to the end of tie stalls. We still have a lot of animals in some countries and that have temporary or permanent tie stalls, so animals tied all their life. And one of the opinion is that we should start eliminating these kind of husbandry systems. So this is just an example of what is a summary of what is the scientific opinion. In case of the calf report, we looked at the colostrum and what is the colostrum management, and how long should an animal be kept alone in a pen, or when should we put them together in pairs or in groups. The current legislation says that after 8 weeks of age, they have to be in groups, but we think that it's too much. And so our opinion is to reduce this to eventually 2 weeks. Also, a lot of other issues have been raised, like the space allowance. We suggested to increase the minimum. The actual space allowance for calves is 1.5 square meters, and we think that 3 square meters is the minimum that should be accepted. Other reports are being published at the moment, like for pigs. I wasn't in these working groups, and for transport. This is going to be something that's production is already protesting a lot, because as you can see, there are here levels of temperature that are quite low, especially for the southern countries like Portugal, in which to transport, for example, pigs, we can't, accordingly to this scientific opinion, we can't transport them when temperature is above 25 degrees. And for this, in Portugal in summer, that means we won't be able to transport pigs during the day, or cattle during the day, because temperature will be always above 25 degrees. Okay, so you can see here that we've published the scientific opinions for transport pigs, broilers, laying hens, calves, and dairy cows. That it's not here, but it's already published. Now, on the what's the present on the animal welfare certification and labeling. What happens in Europe is that there is no European label. So every country, some countries have, as you can see in this map, have several labels, and some countries have none. So this is becoming a problem, as I will discuss afterwards, because it's the impact of these labels has been very little, and the way that these labels are very national, so that it's difficult to sell a product from Portugal or from Spain to another countries, and the consumers in those countries won't recognize those labels. So that's a big disadvantage with when we have a very large market with a lot of trading going on. And on the other hand, there are too many labels, not only on animal welfare, but on, for example, organic or environmental or pasture, using a pasture or whatever. And so what's being discussed is that we have too many labels and consumers are very confused. They don't know exactly what they mean. They don't know the difference between some labels. And we'll go back when I talk about my concerns. We'll go back to this, because I think that the information that these labels should convey to consumers should be relevant, proportionate, sufficient, and understandable. And with or most of the labels that we have at the moment don't fulfill all these four criteria. So the European Commission and European Parliament have now published two studies in which they've been looking at the prospect of having EU transversal or EU level labeling. And so in the future, in a few years, we may have one label that will work for different species, of course, and different systems, but common to all EU countries. And how is it being done now in Portugal? How is assessment and certification being done? The most common animal welfare certification scheme is called welfare, as you can see written down in the bottom. It is a label that was produced or created by IRTA, and IRTA is a Spanish or Catalan organization, semi-public organization, and this label is based on the protocol produced by the Welfare Quality Project and the AWIN project, that were two European projects that were in 2005 to 2009, and then from 2011 to 2015, they produced these protocols that are available in the internet if you look them for them, and that are used for these species that you can see here. And you can see some of the products, Portuguese products here, all have the label: fresh milk, cheese, beef, and eggs. They all, or most production now have this label, and this is very important. And although, as I will talk at the end of this talk, although becoming too common is not very good. How does the welfare as it is written down in the Spanish label, how does it work? We use the welfare quality protocol that is done for dairy cattle, fattening cattle, and slaughter. And what we do is we first ensure that legislation is applied. So we have a list of prerequisites that we have to ensure that the farm applies. And for example, ensure that the animals have contacts. They are not kept in single pens for longer than the 8 weeks that I was talking about. You can see here on the right a photograph of a farm that changed their pens and put two animals together since birth. So that's the way of farms are changing and are starting to improve the welfare by trying to get into this certification scheme. So we look at, I just put here one of the prerequisites that will start now in 2029. That is that at least one person in the farm should have at least 20 hours of training in welfare, in animal welfare. So the idea of having stock person that are trained in welfare, it's an important, it's a criteria that we want to introduce now. So the welfare quality protocol, you may know it, but just to go through the summarize how it works. It works with scoring 4 principles: good feeding, good housing, good health, and adequate behavior. And these will be measured by indicators that will apply for these 12 criteria: absence of prolonged hunger, thirst, comfort in resting, thermal comfort, ease of movement, and absence of injuries and disease, and expression of natural behavior. And we use mainly animal-based. The new legislation in Europe will be based mainly in these kind of indicators, animal-based and not resource-based indicators. And why is that? Because we've discussed this at EFSA. For the first meeting we discussed this was in 2009. And why use animal-based instead of resource-based that are much more objective and easy to record? I bring here a study that was it's just an example, a study with 35 farms, dairy farms in Austria, all freestall, all medium size for the Austrian reality, medium sized farms, and they looked at the different animal-based indicators like body condition score, lameness, hot lesions, mastitis, agonistic behavior. And the idea was could you use just resource-based indicators like being free stall and having the same kind of nutrition, the same kind of cubicles, etc., or should you use the animal-based indicators? And what they found in this paper is that you can see the difference between farms that are, when you look at them first, they are all the same. And the difference you can see when you look at the indicators, the animal-based indicators. For example, in lameness, you get farms with 13% of lame cows and other farms with 71% of lame cows. So animal-based indicators is probably the best way to get the exact image of the welfare status of these animals. So these are just 4 of the indicators that we look for in the protocol. We look at lameness. We look, for example, in the human-animal relationship, the flight distance. We look at cleanliness, physical comfort, lesions, hairless patches. A lot of indicators. That's one of the critics of the welfare quality protocol, is that it takes a bit too long. So in a large farm for I don't know, 800 or 1,000 animals, you can take up to 9 hours applying the protocol. So it is quite long and quite complex, but it is a good way, not perfect, but a good way of assessing the welfare of these animals. How are farms scored? You can be scored in 4 levels, not classified, so under 20 points, acceptable, enhanced, or excellent. But as you can see, for example, for farm to be excellent, you don't have to have all the principles scored above 80 points, but you can't have any principles scored below 60 points. So there are some red lines in this. I remember talking to Temple Grandin about the protocol, and she says, "Oh, I don't like the welfare quality protocol because it doesn't have any red lines. So something that is so bad that you should that is not acceptable, even if the rest is." But if you look at this graph, you can see that there are some red lines. You can't have the next farm that is excellent and with a lot of lame cows, because that will mean that the principle of the health principle will be so low that it won't allow the farm to be scored as excellent. How does it work? It is quite complex the way we do the certification. It all starts with doing self-assessing. So a company, for example, a dairy company that wants to certify the farms, they have to do internal auditing to all the farms, and they have to apply the protocol, not way as complex as the external auditing, but they have to do it to 100% of the farm. And then the external auditing done by impartial certification company or body, they will do it to a square root of the farms that are being certified. And if one of these farms fails, that is not approved, all of the farms, or all those that were elected to be certified, all of those are not accepted. So this means that the internal auditing is very important and should be done by people really sure of what they're doing. These are the indicators that should be or are mandatory for the internal auditing. So 5 that are mandatory, and then plus 5 other measures that the internal auditor can add at its will. And you can see that this will give an idea of what's happening at the farm. The internal auditing is very important because it means that you can look for solutions before starting to do the external auditing. At the moment, I have this slide with the initial cycle, so that the farms that want to come in at the beginning, you could get in with only 20 points, but at this moment, because the welfare label has been going on for quite a few years, at this moment, the pre-initial and the initial part of the program has finished, and so you have to go into the consolidated certification, in which all the farms have to be over 25 points, not percent as it is written there, but all over 25 points. Okay, one problem with the welfare, and it's something that we could discuss, is that there is no difference. When you approve, you have above 25 points, then there's no differentiation between the farms. So, and that is something that should be changed, because there are some very good farms, excellent farms with very high welfare conditions, and they scored, or they will have the same label as one that is not so good. And we should have 2 or 3 classes, or I would say star, 1 star, 2 star, 3 star label that would allow to differentiate some that are good or not so good. So the external, I've been doing these training for a long time. We do it with in 3 days, full days doing training. First in class, doing videos and pictures of or photographs of animals, scoring to ensure that there is high reliability between repeatability between auditors, and then we do it on farm, and then on the 3rd day we do exams, and these auditors have to go through the exams, and if they fail, they won't be allowed to audit. At the moment, I've done training for mainly here in Portugal, of course, in the Azores, but also in Turkey and Brazil, the farms or companies that want to start applying the welfare quality protocol to ruminants. And so at the moment, we've done more than 200 training sessions or trainees all over the country, or all over the world. Just 1 or 2 slides on the Azores. The Azores, of course, the welfare quality protocol is not designed for the conditions of the Azores. So this picture shows the way we have to assess the welfare of animals. And as you can see, the welfare quality protocol is done for intensive housed animals, and so we had to adapt the protocol to these conditions. But it works quite well. You can see here the milking parlor is a mobile milking parlor, so it goes from pasture to pasture. It goes after the cows when they are moved from pasture to pasture, but there's no building, and you have to do well, you have to adapt the indicators. We use the same indicators, but we have to adapt the way we collect them. Before the welfare quality protocol appeared, I produced a welfare, a welfare certification for these animals in the Azores in a program called Milk from Happy Cows. And we had to, as you can see, some of the indicators are the same, but not all are the same. And it is quite a simple way of doing the assessment. The big difference between this protocol and the welfare quality protocol is the scoring. What I did was I created thresholds for different indicators, and then the farm would be scored as a green, yellow, or red for each indicator. And a farm wouldn't be approved if they had more than 2 yellows or 1 red in one indicator, and they would have 3 months or 6 months to improve, and then they could be assessed again. This is just something that I'm very proud of. When we start doing this assessment, this certification scheme for the Happy Cow program, the production in the Azores, the cows are quite well kept. The welfare is quite good, but as you can see in these photographs, the rearing the animals, so the young calves, the conditions were not so good, or actually they were pretty bad in some farms. But we to be allowed to go into the program, to the Happy Cow program, they had to change the way they kept the young stock. And we had some conditions, and the farmers would say, okay, that's impossible, I can't move, that's too much money, I can't change it. But some of them fortunately did change, and as you can see in this picture, the same farms, after they were they did the changes that we forced them to do. As you can see, animals are much better. And one thing that, like I said, I'm very proud of is that when we visit now these farms, the farmers thank us. Okay, that was very good. Thank you for forcing me to change, because I used to have 3 or 4 dead calves every month, and now I don't have any mortality. I have some beautiful heifers and all that. So this is something that really is very, it makes us very happy in working with these farmers, and they know that they improve by working with us. Okay, next step, I'll go quickly now because I think that the time is running. Just so that I go into the concerns, the next step is looking at the more extensive systems, producing protocols for animals in extensive systems. We've published a few suggestions of new indicators. I've been working in Brazil to try and adapt a protocol or build a new protocol for these kind of beef cattle that are completely different from what we produce in Europe. And in Italy, we've been we're working on producing a welfare assessment protocol for buffaloes, especially near Naples, where there are quite a lot of buffalo farms. Now, for the concerns, I don't have much time, but just to go quickly through them. Everyone has heard of greenwashing. Greenwashing is to mislead the consumer into believing that they are buying something that is environmental friendly, or it's produced in very good environmental conditions. And this is only done, nothing is true, or it's misleading, and you're just selling more because you're misleading the consumer. What we now it's becoming more common, especially in the internet. You look a lot, you can see people complaining about humane washing. And humane washing is, like it says here, marketing strategy used by companies, farm retailers, to make their products appear more ethical and humane that they are. And this is something that I'm afraid that it can be exaggerated by some people, and especially some organizations that are against animal production. But something you may have something true behind this, and so you should really ensure that when you do the assessment and when you do the certification, you're really improving the welfare of the animal. That's the important thing, not to sell more or to please the consumer, but to really be sure that you're having happy animals, and you have animals that are they live a life that's worth living for the entire, until they're of course killed for consumption. So and the role of different parts of the chain is very important. One of them is of course the farmer. The farmer has to believe in welfare. He has to really do or change or apply the rules because he believes in, because it's the way to do it. You can't. I put these 4 photographs to show what may happen in some farms. You go there to do the auditing, and you see very happy calves lying down in very good bedding, and then you go away, and that's the way the calf lives during all the rest of the year. So one way of doing this is to really train farmers into animal welfare, convince them that the animal welfare is good for the economics and the welfare of the farmer, and to start using unannounced visits. And that is something that we are starting to do in the welfare label, exactly to avoid the problems of humane washing. And because of their increasing amount of evidence that some of the farms that are certified usually are not really working as well as they should, and they are really doing humane washing. I'll just jump some of these, but one other important role is the auditor, and that is because they have to, what they see is what they tell, and they have to be transparent and impartial, of course, and fair, but competent in the evaluation. And like I said, you don't want to kill the golden egg chicken, because the certification, these companies that do certification earn a lot of money by doing them. This is why you can read, like you see here, that I read in a paper a few weeks ago, that certification today enrich corporations that profit from factory farming and shield it and themselves from criticism. We can't hear this. This is something that shouldn't be possible. The certification body have to be really transparent, and they have to really ensure that the welfare of the humans. And the retailers, I have here, these are what I think they should do. They should share the effort required to meet the animal welfare requirements, not just enforce on the farmers or the producers to what the consumer demands, but they should also share the effort. But also respond rationally to consumers' demand, and not just enforce on the farmer everything that the consumer asks for. And what really happens sometimes with retailers, at least in our country, is that because they know that if they have bad publicity because of some farm that is caught doing something bad, and they know that consumers will move to other retailers, they try to hide more or less what happens in the production. You can see here Tesco drops pork farm over distressing undercover film, but the Tesco should be the first to discover this. It shouldn't be someone going into the farm and finding the bad condition. Tesco or whatever other retailers shouldn't hide the head like the ostrich does. It should be part of the solution. It should be part of the way that we want to work with animals, and not just enforce on the producers the way they should work, and then when they don't work well, just put them aside. So that is my concern. I think I've gone quite a long time now over my time limit, so I'll go just to this last or these two last slides. One is, see that the EU is now regulating the possibility of greenwashing, and so they've announced that you can't put on your product that it's environmentally friendly or natural or biodegradable or whatever, without really proof of that, or scientific proof of that claim. And that should happen also for the humane washing. The credibility of the certification is crucial. If we lose the credibility of these certification, we'll like I said, the animal welfare won't improve, and the farmers won't have better production, and the economics and the finance of these farms won't be better, of course. So I also think the terms should be legally defined. You can't really say, like I have here in front, this. I love the Azores. I go to the Azores often, and I'm working to improve the welfare. But you can see here something that I don't know if you can read, but it says the Azores certified by nature. What does that mean? Certified by nature? It doesn't mean anything. So misleading terms like animal friendly, human raised, animal care certified, and other misleading terms like non-medicated or antibiotic free that consumers sometimes confuse with welfare. All these should be really defined, and you can't use these terms without really having something to support them. Okay, so I think that's enough. I think I've more or less transmitted my ideas. So thank you very much for listening, and I hope you have some questions. And I have here one last slide that I was asked to leave on concerning the next talk.